A Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. John Steinbeck was born on February 27, 1902 in Salinas, California, to John Ernest Steinbeck and Olive Hamilton Steinbeck. Growing up, he had two older sisters named Beth and Esther, and a younger sister named Mary. Also growing up, his family, they were neither wealthy nor were they poor. And at the age of 14, Steinbeck knew that he wanted to become a writer. In 1919, he enrolled in Stanford University. However, he did not complete college at Stanford University. Steinbeck tried to work as a construction worker and then as a New York City reporter, but both of those jobs did not work out for him. Throughout his life, he wrote many successful novels and short stories. Two of his most famous novels were The Grapes of Wrath and Of Mice and Men. But on December 20th, 1968, Steinbeck died. The plot of Mice and Men was based on two main characters, George and Lenny, in their migration. George and Lenny were on their way to California to find work. When their initial plan was, once that they saved up enough money, they would buy their own land, build their own house, have cattle, and grow their own plants and stuff like that. And that was the American dream. But due to the fact that their bus dropped them off miles away from their initial destination, they had to find work where they were. They eventually found work on a nearby farm or ranch. While they were on the ranch, however, they encountered many problems, especially Lenny. Lenny's childlike demeanor got him into a lot of trouble, but there was one situation in particular that was the most shocking and dreadful out of all situations. Throughout the story, Curly's wife, who was known as the Tramp, she continuously flirted with Lenny and in some cases harassed him. Some cases she harassed him. But one day, Curly's wife made Lenny upset to the point where he shook her, but he shook her too hard and accidentally broke her neck. Once the word got out, workers formed a lynch party in order to kill Lenny for what he did. But George, on the other hand, knew that Lenny didn't mean to kill her. However, George ended up shooting Lenny in the back of the head to put him out of his misery. Now the characters. One of the main characters is George. George is a short, stocky, clever, smart-mouthed man. The other main character is Lenny, and Lenny is a tall, huge, gargantuan, very powerful man, but he lacks the mental capabilities that allow him to fully take care of himself. And because Lenny is so strong and powerful yet naive, he does not understand the full potential of his strength and what he can do. And from the beginning to the end of the story, George was like Lenny's guardian. He watched over him. Other characters in the story include Whit, Candy, and Carlson, who are workers on the ranch. The boss is a supervisor of the ranch. He runs it. Curly is the boss's son. Curly has a wife, but she's not given a name. She's just referred to as the Tramp, or not the Tramp, but the Tramp. Crooks is the African-American stable keeper, and Slim is the mule handler. Now we're going to talk about the Great Depression. A Mice and Men was written or published around 1937. The time that Steinbeck wrote A Mice and Men was during the Great Depression. The Great Depression started with the crashing of the stock market on October 24th, 1927. This was also known as Black Thursday. Due to the economic downfall, approximately 3.2 million people lost their job. In December of 1931, the United States Bank of New York collapsed, and they lost about $200 million. The RFC was created to lend the banks money. On March of 1933, FDR passed the Emergency Banking Bill, which only allowed Federal Reserve banks to operate in the United States. In April of 1933, the CCC, or Civilian Conservation Corps, was created to give jobs to men ranging from ages 17 to 27. In April 1935, the Works Progress Administration was created, which employed about 8.5 million people. In August of 1935, the Social Security Act was passed, or was signed by FDR. In October 1936, John Steinbeck wrote The Gypsy's Harvest, which was a series of short articles. And The Gypsy's Harvest portrayed the living and working conditions of the migrants. Now, the history of mice and men. As I said, John Steinbeck wrote Mice and Men during the Great Depression, but it was a book somewhat based on the American dream. George and Lenny were figurative representations of the migrant workers during the Great Depression. They were on their way to find work in California. In the late 1930s, California had the highest demand for farmers. Farmers in California were actually people who did hard labor, such as cutting lumber or mining for oil. Without migrant workers, California's agricultural system wouldn't thrive. Some more history of Mice and Men. Steinbeck wrote of Mice and Men around the same time that he was experiencing economic downfall in California. He expressed his perspective on the economic downturn through the characters George and Lenny. He also expressed the hardships that many workers went through. However, when George and Lenny were trying to find work, they became lost in the middle of nowhere. And this was a figurative representation of the many workers who became disassociated with American agriculture. However, George and Lenny wanted to own their own land, build their own house, have their own cattle, which at the end of the day still shows that everyone still wanted that American dream. Now, literary devices in Of Mice and Men. The first literary device is Curly's Wife. Curly's wife is a representation of the perfect woman. She has the fancy hair, the fancy clothes, shoes, jewelry, and she wears a lot of makeup. She also represents the belittling and corruption of women. For example, in the story, she is viewed as an object and not a person. That's why she's not given a name. Lastly, she represents loneliness. For example, she doesn't express her feelings. Like, she expressed her feelings, but she expressed it to Lenny and not her husband. And she's felt like she got no attention. Okay, now for Candy's dog. Candy's dog can be described as an old dog who has no benefit. He's kind of an object and he's just in the way. The shooting of Candy's dog by Carlson is the foreshadowing of Lenny's death. Lenny was shot the exact same way that Candy's dog was shot, which was in the back of the head. Both characters in the story were killed for similar reasons. They were both put out of their mercy, per se. Another literary device, or symbolism, is the killing of the puppy and the mouse. Lenny had a mouse and a puppy, but he accidentally killed them both. This was due to his enormous amount of power that he didn't know he had. And in these two incidents, they foreshadowed the death of Curly's wife. In the same situation, when he killed Curly's wife, it was an accident. Therefore, Lenny was being too forceful, yet he didn't realize it, and this resulted in the breaking of Curly's wife's neck. Now the evaluation of the novel. Mice and Men is by far one of the best novels that I've ever read. It's not only a good novel, but there's a historic meaning behind it that not many people know, which is the agricultural crisis and the fall of the Great Depression and all of that. It explains the hardships that workers experienced and that they went through, and it also demonstrates the unknown abilities or capabilities that people have, yet they don't know, such as Lenny. It also demonstrates the exploiting of women and how they aren't really appreciated in society. Now, therefore, Mice and Men is a novel worth reading. It is one of the most well-known novels written by John Steinbeck, besides The Grapes of Wrath. After reading it, readers will get clearer understanding of migrant workers, and they'll begin to understand what they went through. Also, they'll be able to receive moral and educational knowledge from this book. An example of this would be the understanding of the overbearing power that some people hold in order to belittle everyone around them. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.